Last time out, Buddy Simpson demonstrated his ability to show perseverance through adversity.
Now heading down, up towards turn 6 I believe it is. Now heading in the corner, but there's contact, and Buddy has lost it, and he's going to correct anyone. Yes he is, he tapped the Toro Rosso, and that has damaged his front wing. As you can see, we crossed the line in P8, our second points finish from 2 races.
There was only a week break between the Chinese and Bahrain Grand Prix, so without further ado, it was time for Buddy to head off to the Sakir International Circuit for the Bahrain Grand Prix and prove as Simpson belongs in Formula 1. So, just a week after Buddy got a fantastic result in China, probably driving one of the best races of his career by fighting his way back up to 8th after an incident on the first lap, it was now time for him to race in the desert of Bahrain. And it was going to be an interesting race. One interesting thing for Buddy was going to be his engine usage. For this race, in practice, he used the components he used in China, where in China he took a new ICE and CE. For those particular components, in third practice he put in the spec that he used in Australia, and the rest of the power unit is all completely new. Obviously he's going to have to use the older components later on so he avoids an engine penalty, but it was going to give him more power, because particularly this track is a bit more power sensitive. So, without further ado, it was time for the qualifying report. As darkness fell on the Sakir International Circuit, that meant one thing: qualifying for the Bahrain Grand Prix was about to get underway. Sauber once again struggled as they locked out the back row. McLaren again struggled as they locked out the second to last row. Lance Stroll was very disappointed to miss out on making it into Q2, whilst Massa qualified 6th. It was an average qualifying for the Haas team with 12th and 15th. The Toro Rossos locked out the 7th row, whilst Buddy Simpson outqualified his teammate Nico Hülkenberg for the second consecutive time. Force India were glad to get into the Q3 for the first time. The Red Bulls had an average session with 4th and 5th. Vettel just missed out on pole, whilst Raikkonen had a grid penalty that dropped him to 9th. However, it was Lewis Hamilton who took pole position for Mercedes. So looking at how they line up, and it is the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton who lines up on pole position ahead of Vettel in the Ferrari. It was going to be a titanic battle heading into the first corner. Bottas was 3rd ahead of Ricciardo in 4th. Verstappen was 5th ahead of Massa, Perez and Ocon. Raikkonen was 9th after his grid penalty ahead of Buddy Simpson, Nico Hülkenberg and Romain Grosjean. Sainz 13th ahead of Kvyat, Magnussen. Stroll was disappointed with 16th ahead of the 2 McLarens of Alonso and Van Dorn, and the 2 Saubers of Wehrlein and Ericsson, rounding out the grid.
The curtain rises once more then on the desert stage of Sakir as the players take their places for the opening act. Will they enthrall us like they did in 2014 with that titanic battle between Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton? Well, we'll find out shortly as we get underway here in Bahrain. We'll be racing around 3.36 miles of the magnificent Bahrain International Circuit today, with 15 corners and 2 DRS zones into turns 1 and turn 11. That should create some good passing opportunities. Keep an eye out for drivers locking the front left down into the tricky braking zone of turn 10. Bahrain has showed us many times in the past though, Anthony Davidson, that a good strategy will only take you so far. Beyond that, you need good racecraft and you need good consistency.
And a little bit of luck too, I'd say. This is one of those circuits where the safety car always seems to come out just at the right time to condense the field together and mix up the cars on different strategies. It's hard on brakes, it's tough on fuel, and the main overtaking opportunity is down into turn 1, where it's easy to outbrake your opponent and potentially have a bit of argy-bargy as well.
So, here Buddy is, sitting on the grid here at the Bahrain International Circuit in the dust conditions which they obviously race in here in P10 on the grid, just behind a Ferrari. Really dizzy heights for someone who'd expect to be in the midfield, more further down. But the formation lap is underway, and it's going to be really interesting. I mean, as David Croft said, Bahrain is a very interesting race when it comes to strategy. So, it was going to be very interesting to see how Body was going to get along, because there were a lot of new components on the engine, all fresh and new for the race. So his power output is going to be a bit stronger. But Body was going to want to avoid some first lap incidents that could mess up his strategy.
Okay, Body, keep working the tyres and be careful on the first lap, please.
So obviously Body has been told to be careful on the first lap, and now heading into the final corner on the formation lap, and now is about to line up on the grid for the start of the Bahrain Grand Prix. So Buddy is about to get into position, and he has hit his grid box, and now he just has the wait for the rest of the cars to line up on the grid. Obviously mid-pack, so it's not going to be a short amount of time, but almost everyone is in position, and we have the lights in Bahrain. Lights out, away we go, and Buddy gets an okay launch, not the best, but as you can see, Nico Hulkenberg once again getting a fantastic launch to the line. Heading into the first corner, Buddy has the inside line. That's Romain Grosjean throwing it up the inside, as Buddy Simpson is side by side. As you can see, there's a little bit of contact ahead, which obviously causes a bit of a block up behind, which includes Buddy, but Buddy's now right behind his teammate, heading up towards turn 4. He's going down the inside, but he has to back off for Kimi Räikkönen, and he's on the inside going into the sweepers, and he has made that move stick. So here, looking at a replay, as you can see, Romain Grosjean throwing it up the inside of everyone heading into turn 1. But then there's that contact that we mentioned. I think someone lost an end plate, but it had been a reasonable start to the race for Buddy. I mean, he had lost a position, but he had a massive fight with his teammate, but he lost a position due to Romain Grosjean's extreme aggression heading into the first corner. But it obviously worked for him. He saw a gap down the inside and just threw it up the inside of everyone. But now moving on to the start of lap 2, as you can see, they're all jostling about ahead heading into the first corner. He's right behind Kimi, but the rear is gone, and he has lost it, and he's going to have to wait for the entire field to go past, which is really not what he needs. Sorry guys, oh god, just lost it on cold tyres. Really unfortunate mistake from Buddy, and as you can see, once the rear had gone, there was just no saving the car. So as you can see, he gets going again, but he has lost a lot of ground, unfortunately, and he is down to last, and that qualifying effort has all been trashed. However, it would not take long for Buddy to catch up with the back markers, which were the McLarens and the Saubers, and as you can see, he heads into the final corner, quite a way behind Stoffel Vandoorne, but he has the luxury of DRS, and as you can see, he is gaining quite fast. That McLaren is really underpowered on the straight, and Buddy has the inside heading into the first corner. There's just absolutely nothing Stoffel can do about it. Jeez, that McLaren Honda is slow. You can see why people call it a GP2 engine. Well, Buddy firing some shots at McLaren Honda there. But Buddy is now behind the McLaren of Fernando Alonso, the other McLaren, and considering how easy it was for him to pass Van Dorn, we'd assume this wouldn't be a too tricky move. As you can see, he's having a little look down the inside, heading into the turn 8, now heading into turn 10. As you can see, Alonso runs a bit wide and Buddy taps him a little bit, but he is able to get through. And as you can see, the two McLarens behind were battling, but Buddy is now ahead of Alonso. So next on his hit list were the two Saubers of Ericsson and Verline. And as you can see, Buddy dives it up the inside, going into turn 8. And he has made the move stick. In fact, actually, Ericsson kind of didn't expect Buddy to go down the inside there, so kind of backed off to avoid a collision. But Buddy is up into P17, and now he is behind Verline, who is the 4th of his targets to pass, and he has managed to easily pass. Obviously, Sauber using the old Ferrari engine, there was nothing that he could do to defend from us there, especially as we had DRS and he didn't, and we are up into P16. But now Buddy had caught up to a train of like 5 cars behind the likes of Carlos Sainz. And as you can see, they're all battling ahead. It's all being led by Lance Stroll, who's had a good start to the race. He seems to be leading a lot of trains this year so far. But as you can see, we are right behind Carlos Sainz. We're in the slipstream and we send one up the inside, heading into turn 4 and almost punt Kevin Magnussen out of the way, and he has to get off the racing line, as we're going to see if we can get through, but he has the better line. So we have made one position in that, and we are up into P15. So Buddy had started his fight back to the field, but he struggled to get past the Haas of Kevin Magnussen. But he did have some good pace. But here, as you can see, he hits the curb and spins into Carlos Sainz. And Carlos Sainz is out of the race, and Buddy has lost his front wing.
How's my front wing? How's my front wing?
It's gone. Box, box, box.
Oh, for sake.
So, as you can see, he just got on the curb and lost it, and looking at it from Sainz's perspective, he just had nowhere to go. And unfortunately, that has taken him out of the race. So Buddy is going to have to pit for a new front wing, unfortunately, and that is going to really ruin his race. So he heads into the final corner, obviously running wide without that downforce, heading into the pit lane. With all the downforce lost, obviously it was going to be a tough trip back to the pits. So,
is there a safety car for that incident, or a virtual safety car?
Doesn't look like it at the moment.
That helps.
so obviously, as you heard there, Buzzy was hoping for a safety car, and he exits the pits now, exits his box, still on the limiter, but he has fallen way back, and unfortunately it was going to be very hard for him to recover what he'd lost and get any points, especially as the incident did not result in a safety car or a virtual safety car. But Buddy was put on the soft tyre, so he was aiming to go longer and hopefully still be able to put on the super softs at the end. So, and as you can see, Fernando Alonso is in the pits, and that's obviously going to give us a position, and this means when other cars pit, we could gain ground as well. And as far as our race position was concerned, we were now actually in P15, and actually once Kvyat pitted, he rejoined in front of us, and we actually had more pace than him. So it was going to be interesting to see if Buddy could fight his way through the field again. Obviously, points was going to be very unlikely, but things were going to be interesting. And we eventually caught up to the Tauros, and as you can see, we've got DRS and the slipstream, and we send one up the inside, heading into turn 1, but he's able to perform the switchback, and we have to leave a little bit of room, and there's not much room between us, coming very close to contact. This is very good racing between the two, but Buddy has more momentum, heading up towards turn 4, and has taken the position. At this stage of the race, Buddy was actually looking like he could get back into it, because although his tyres were wearing, he still seemed quite comfortable on them, as he said on the team radio.
Okay, Buddy, how are the tyres?
They're good. Feel like I've got a lot more laps in them. I think I can go to lap 40 if you wanted me to. And we actually have a virtual safety car which would buy us more tyre conservation to be able to make the distance we needed to. But unfortunately, on lap 36, things would go wrong.
I've got a puncture, What happened?
Okay, Buddy Boss, be careful on the in-lap. We will put super softs on. I know that's a risk, but it's worth taking.
So Buddy had half the lap to travel to get back to the pits, which was obviously going to put him at risk of damaging the car, but it's the front tyre, so that is not as much of a risk when it comes to damaging the car as the rear tyre. So Buddy heading down the back straight, and as you can see, his teammate who's already pitted has come through, but it was just so unfortunate, as it did look like the tyre was going to make it, but unfortunately, despite being on around the 76%, it unfortunately failed and he just ran out of tyre. So he's into the pits, both of his stops coming at unscheduled times, which the first one ultimately led to this puncture because it meant that he had to push these tyres so long in order to keep his race alive and still be able to go on the super soft. But as you can see, he went to the super soft tyre and he's going to exit in P14 behind Danny Kvyat. As you can see, he's being lapped here by Kimi Räikkönen. It's a faster car that's approaching, and Alonso is the car behind, but he's quite a way behind. So we are currently in P14. We would catch up to the Force India of Esteban Ocon, who actually appeared to be having a car problem. There's only one explanation, and Buddy was told on the team radio that Ocon had a car problem. As you can see, he's got a better run heading into the fast corners, into the penultimate corner, but now he's got the run, and this was going to be an easy move going into the final corner. So Buddy is up into P13. But later on, Lance Stroll would have a failure and he'd stop on track, and that would result in a safety car, which not only obviously with Stroll out would give us a position, this is also a lifeline when it comes to our race, because this is going to close the pack back up and put Buddy back on terms with the likes of Kvyat.
Okay, Buddy, we have a safety car. Conserve the tyres. We could get points here.
So this was going to put Buddy back in the race for points, and this is really what he needed. One obstacle he was going to have, though, was the fact that he was going to have to respond to some blue flags, kind of like he did in China, without letting the car that was actually behind him through. So as you can see, this is the lap. The safety car is coming in. He is right behind Kvyat, but he can't instantly go for it, most likely due to the blue flags. But he was also going to have to move over for some cars as well. As you can see, we have been released now, switching to the standard mix. As you can see, we're just waiting for Ocon to move over before moving over for Roman Grosjean. As you can see, Kevin Magnussen kind of misjudges it and actually lets Danny Kvyat through. And as you can see, we are now moving over 4 cars, but the technique here was to stay behind them, because if we stayed behind them when the likes of Kvyat and Magnussen had to move over, then we could be right there to pounce. As you can see, we can't move over for Verstappen yet because he is side by side with Ocon, who is the car behind Buddy. But as you can see, we are now right behind Kevin Magnussen, heading into the final corner. Buddy's going to try it up the inside, but Magnussen has the better run. But Buddy was going to have DRS. I'm not sure Magnussen was going to have DRS here. So, Buddy in the slipstream. Actually, DRS wasn't enabled at this point, so Buddy wasn't going to get DRS. But he still is able to make the move stick. So, Buddy is up into P11. Can he get the final point? Because Kvyat was going to have to move over for Max Verstappen. It was the last lap here, but Kvyat was proving a bit of a reluctance to move over for Max Verstappen. This was the last lap, as I said, because obviously we were a lap down on the leader. But Kvyat's being a little bit naughty here. I think he's obviously knows that we are behind and we were going to be really aggressive if we got close. So obviously Buddy was not going to want to slow down, but he was going to have to at some point, otherwise he was going to get a penalty. But at this point it was starting to look unlikely that Buddy was going to get any points. But as you can see, Kvyat has moved over for Verstappen, and we were going to try and make it through, and we see a gap, and Buddy is now in the points. So somehow, after all that has happened, Buddy was now in the points, but he still had a final corner to go with Danny Kvyat right behind us. So, heading into the final corner, Lewis Hamilton wins the race in a crazy finish to the race. And Buddy Simpson, Kvyat is in the slipstream, but there was not enough straight for Kvyat, so we are going to finish in the points. And Buddy was delighted.
Oh, that was quite an action-packed race.
Great recovery drive. If you eliminate the incident, imagine how high you can finish.
So, looking at the race result, it is Hamilton who wins ahead of Raikkonen, Bottas and Vettel. Once again, both Renaults end up in the points. So Renault have had a really good start to the season. I don't know how Buddy managed to get a point, despite everything that happened. Losing his front wing, a puncture, a spin, but still manages to get up to P10. So looking at the drivers' standings, Buddy has unfortunately dropped behind Perez, but it was damage limitation, and they both are actually equal on points. So Buddy cannot be disappointed with that, especially considering everything that happened. So looking at the constructors' standings, Renault are still in 5th, with Haas moving level with Force India, but 22 points, just 8 points behind Williams. Very good start to the season for Renault. And as you can see, Lewis Hamilton holds up his trophy in celebration, and the champagne is sprayed on the Bahrain podium. So, Buddy once again pulls off a great recovery drive, but will he be able to continue his 100% scoring record in Sochi?
You have one voicemail message.
Hey buddy, it's your dad here. I was watching the Formula 1 race and the amounts of incidents you got involved in made me think maybe Formula 1 isn't your thing. Do you want to test IndyCar again, as I think it would suit you more?
Go away, I love F1 scored points. You're only trying to get me back from the